Welcome to another episode of GraysMatter podcast, where we talk about things and stuff. I'm Justin Grays, and tonight our co-hosts are Nat.
My pronouns are they, them.
And Sarah.
Hello, my pronouns are she, her.
How are you two doing tonight?
Well, now that I figure out how my sound settings work, I'm great.
Yeah,
I'm full of shepherd's pie, so I'm also doing great.
Shepherd's pie.
What was in it?
So we made it using leftovers from last night. So it was lamb, glazed carrots, mashed potatoes, celery, and mushrooms, and gravy, using gravy made from the Cornish hens we had 2 nights ago. So my mom really knows how to cook.
That sounds so good.
It was very good.
In sad news today, Desmond Tutu died.
I saw that.
Yeah, the day after Christmas.
I have to be honest, he was one of those people that I had assumed already died, and I just forgot when it happened. He lived a very long and very fruitful life.
Yeah, that is true and understandable. I mean, he was 90, and all the work he did in South Africa dealing with apartheid was intense.
He did UN work after that, is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
He did work with the Oslo Accords with the Israeli-Palestine conflict, but I don't know if he did anything with UN. That's not saying that he didn't do anything with the UN. I just don't know if he did.
Yeah, I could have sworn he held some official UN position, but maybe it's just that he was so internationally important that his opinion on things was given a lot of weight.
Yeah, I do know he was the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, the Bishop of Johannesburg, the Archbishop of Cape Town, the Africa Director for the TEF. Don't know what the TEF is.
I was just about to ask.
It's got to say here somewhere. I'm doing a quick search of what he did. You know what? Search and text.
I'm scrolling through his wiki page, and he described Reagan as, quote, and this is a direct quote, racist, pure and simple.
Well, that's because Reagan was racist, pure and simple.
He was, but it's rare do you see international figures use such plain language.
I am so glad that he did.
Yeah.
Oh, that is beautiful.
That's king of
chef's kiss. So
Mwah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like it.
The Theological Education Fund. That's what the TEF is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Frickin' Reagan screwed up so much. A lot of those Second Amendment jerks. Should I call them jerks? I'm going to call them jerks. A lot of those Second Amendment jerks are all like, yeah, freedom to carry here in the United States because this is the United States and blah, blah, blah. And their NRA darling Reagan really cracked down on gun ownership when he was governor of California because he didn't want Black Panthers to own guns because they're black. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you're NRA darling.
Well, honestly, the history of the NRA as relates to conservatives is very interesting because they weren't into Second Amendment defense and gun rights and all of that until the conservatives went in and said, oh, hey, look how many people are part of this organization, and they might all be sympathetic to us. Let's go. Let's infiltrate it.
That is true.
And that's about how that went.
Yeah, beforehand, they were like, yeah, we should not just let anybody have guns. As I knock over my microphone, they're more about the education and controlling firearm use. Being responsible.
It's also, if I recall correctly, also realized that if they pander to a certain demographic that is probably going to buy a lot of guns, then they can get more money from a smaller segment of the U.S. population because, they manufacture guns. Mm-hmm. And so if they can keep those gun sales up, then that's good. And it's like, okay, well, can we play into the fears of this small group of people who feel like they need to buy 15, 20, 22 guns and all the accessories that go with them? That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Of course not. That would cut into our profits. Duh.
I don't trust most people who purchase guns. So if it's like, as a hobby thing, that doesn't bother me. Whatever. Because we all got our hobbies. Enjoy your hobby. But if someone's saying, yeah, I got to buy one for protection or for defense, then I'm like,
Honey.
No, I don't trust you then. You shouldn't have one because you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting, and this is white person speaking. I have a few friends who got into it as a hobby and do keep one or two around for defense. Also locked up, also like responsibly used, and they still feel that it's important to be able to end conflicts quickly, either by showing that there is a gun or by making the verbal threat and having some way to back it up. But that is their belief that I'm responsible and I am not going to use this unless it's desperate. And sometimes it's desperate.
I mean, usually the quickest way to end a conflict is to de-escalate it instead of escalating it.
Yeah.
I'm not a self-defense professional, but I do take self-defense courses, and I do have done martial arts for a few years. And our instructor is a guy who he shoots. He has done actual scholarly research into the way that conflicts between humans, like actual conflicts, like bar fights, other kinds of assaults, usually play out. He's reviewed thousands of hours of security cam footage for this research, and he's like, yeah, de-escalating is what you should do. Like, if you can get away from the situation, that is the best way to get it, not to introduce more violence into the situation.
Oh, I agree.
The teacher sounds super rad.
He is super rad. He's a cool guy.
When I still worked downtown Minneapolis, I would end up in the middle of conflicts between people who were super pissed about whatever, and I would de-escalate using, words and never with the threat of violence on anybody, and that always worked best. I pulled up right quick here. NPR did a report on this in 2018. 48% of gun owners say they own a gun mainly for protection. According to the National Crime Victimization Survey, people defended themselves with a gun in nearly 0.9% of crimes from 2007 to 2011. And according to Harvard research, the risks of owning a gun outweigh the benefits in the rare, and I'll repeat, rare case where you might need one to defend yourself. I
That's why I personally don't keep a gun.
Yeah.
I took martial arts for 10 years, and I have a couple of melee weapons in my house if I need them, but am I really going to need them?
When I did Citizens Academy, one of the things that we did was a practice where we would try to draw on police officer faster. And when I say draw, I mean just have our hand in the shape of a, index finger pointed out like a gun, faster than they could. And even having their hand pointed at their head, they'd still draw faster because it takes time for you to be able to see, react, and take aim than it does for someone who's already in motion to be able to do it. There's always a delay. It's how humans are built. We do not react. Our concept of real time is a delay because of how information travels. So the whole thing of, you should feel safe because I have a gun on my hip because I'm a good guy with a gun is fundamentally flawed across the board.
It's really neat that there's research about this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if my instructor published it in a scholarly journal. So I should explain, I'm part of a swordplay guild, the Chicago Swordplay Guild, and it has various ranks, and one of the ranks is scholar, and to gain the rank of scholar, you literally need to put together a scholarly research article. So he put it together for this scholarly research article, but whether it's actually published in an academic journal, that I want to make clear. I do not know if this thing has actually been peer-reviewed or not, but he has talked about the research that he's done, and he has to basically, defend his research before other members of this organization. So there is some vetting, but whether it would pass academic muster, I do not know. I'm not a scholar yet.
The more you talk about this guy, the cooler he sounds.
Yeah, the Chicago Swordplay Guild is full of a bunch of good people. I do recommend it.
Are they affiliated with the SCA at all?
No, we are not.
Very cool.
No, we do have some members of the SCA who come and do bouts with us every once in a while, but no, not affiliated. Slightly different standards in terms of training and safety. Of course, the guild thinks that, we think that our standards are better. Otherwise, they wouldn't be our standards, but slightly different.
When I was in Citizens Academy, just touching on that one more time, the police officers who were doing it said that, they're for more gun control as well, because as I recall, this was a couple years ago now, people are too... I don't remember how they said it, but essentially too lackadaisical about getting their hands on guns and being unsafe with them. And I kind of have to agree with that.
I mean, like, the whole idea that, like, if your intention of having a gun is quote-unquote for protection, that means it needs to be readily available and immediately accessible, which basically means unlocked and loaded.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
That's the opposite of safely storing it. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. You can't be both safe and have one for protection. Yeah.
Exactly. Good guy with a gun is just a fantasy. And yet they won't wear a mask.
It's not impossible. There are the stressingly rare occasions where it does come in handy. There was a case recently in the Chicago suburbs where a woman was going for a run, and they were large dogs. I don't know if they were a specific breed, but two large aggressive dogs attacked her, and both the owner and a random passerby tried to pull the dogs off her, and it wasn't working. So the random passerby happened to be carrying, so he shot one of the dogs, and that made both of them finally stop attacking this woman, and she survived. So, like, the one rare case where it can, but, like, you know, that's kind of like how, like, well, sometimes not wearing a seatbelt can actually be useful, but most of the time you'll die.
Oh, yeah.
Or get seriously injured if you're not wearing your seatbelt. But there are, in fact, rare occasions. But do you want to play those numbers?
Yeah, that probably feeds into that 0.9%.
Yep, exactly.
I feel bad for everyone involved in that, though.
Yeah.
Wonder what happened, what got into those dogs.
Well, so the article that I was reading, and I can probably share it later, the one was going for a run. She was passing by this house that had multiple dogs, and one dog, which was like a small dog, came out and, like, you know, started saying, oh, hello. And so she was, like, helping bring this small dog back to the property. And as she was bringing it back, I'm guessing that the larger dogs saw this and it triggered a territorial response in them. So then they ran out and attacked her. Presumably because they saw the smaller dog with her, and she might have been, like, you know, pulling it by a collar or something, and so they were, being dogs, reacted defensively.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. That's still terrifying.
The onus is still primarily on the owner for not training these dogs and, you know, keeping them under control and not running out into the fact that she had 3 dogs and they all ran out into the street at this random woman, and 2 of them with intent to harm is not a good look.
No, not
to be
at all.
Flippant.
Not at all. Dogs can be scary, especially with that lack of training there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is the dog socialized properly? Do they respond to commands? Do they understand that humans work differently than dogs do?
Yeah. A lot of people, humans are just, we took a perfectly good wolf, fucked it up, and then get surprised when they act in a way that we don't expect because we don't treat them in the way that they need to be treated. Makes me sad. Humans, we got to do better.
Makes me think of the conversation we had recently, Justin, about the Star Trek episodes, DS9 episodes about the Bell Riots and how optimistic Sisko is in those episodes.
Oh, yeah.
For context, in these episodes, Sisko and Bashir and Dax are transported back to 2024. You know, such a distant era in our future. And they are... Sisko and Bashir are sent to what's called a sanctuary district, where people who need jobs or food or mental health care are kind of shunted out of the way and left to fend for themselves. It's not great. And they happen to be there when these riots happen that were the catalyst in the 21st century for a whole host of reforms in the United States. Yeah, about that.
Yeah. We don't have any formal sanctuary districts. There's still a little bit of time. The Bashir, Dax, and Sisko beam down on August 30th, 2024. So there's a little bit of time.
You know, we may not have sanctuary districts, but I spent my afternoon today prepping food to for other people to cook and deliver to homeless encampments over the next couple of days. It's like we have unofficial sanctuary districts at this point.
We do, yes.
It's just called the South Side of Chicago.
Yeah, but without the formal structure, the guards were held hostage, and so people could get on the net to tell their stories about why they're there and how they're being kept there when they just want to find a job and get on their feet. Also, that United States of 2024 is using metric.
Some people are still trying.
Oh yeah, I know I am. Except for Celsius. I don't like Celsius.
Oh, and here I am. The only thing I've changed is my weather app.
I mean, Celsius is great for science.
It is.
But for, body field temperature, Fahrenheit's better.
Yes, precisely. And I would, I think that imperial measurements in general, they are easier for, everyday stuff. Definitely metric's better for scientific because it's more precise. But if you just need, a ballpark, he's about 6 feet. He's about 2.25 meters. What? No. He's 6 feet.
I mean, most people think 2 meters is a pretty easy measurement if you go outside this country.
Yeah.
But you know what? I never see heights in meters though. They always give it in centimeters.
I've seen in meters.
Uh-huh.
It's really location specific, I think, though. But with the Fahrenheit, it's 0 is cold and 100 is hot. Celsius is 0 is cold and 100 is dead. And Kelvin is 0 is dead and 100 is dead. But, with Fahrenheit, at least with, 0 degrees, you can still get around outside. Yeah, everything's frozen, but you're not dead. You're just cold. And if it's 100 degrees, you're really hot, but you're still not dead. Just, make certain you can find some shade and get some water. But it gives more of that variation needed for the body feel. Is it going to be one of those biting colds, or is it just kind of cool?
Why does nobody think about the body feel?
Yeah, that's why we've got...
Raise your hand if you watch ContraPoints.
How did you know?
I can't wait till the next ContraPoints is out. I mean, I can't wait because I have to wait, but...
You don't get a choice in the matter.
Yeah, I'm glad she's still producing, and I hope she is doing better. But
Going back to
freaking wind chill.
Going back to the temperature thing, my dad once told me a riddle that kind of helps put the body feel for Celsius into perspective. So there was a person who decided they had to go to work that day, into the office. Bummer. And it was really nice out, really nice. So they put on just a windbreak jacket and decided to ride their motorcycle into work. And on the way, they passed one of those banks that displays the temperature, and it was displaying both in Fahrenheit and in Celsius. And this person looked up at it and noticed that when they saw the number in Fahrenheit, the digits were flipped for the number in Celsius, and they thought that was kind of cool. Well, over the course of the day, it got a lot colder, and they were a little regretful of having brought only their motorcycle to work because it was real chilly on that ride home. And on the way back, they passed the same bank, and they noticed that again, the digits for the number in Fahrenheit were flipped from the digits in Celsius. So then the question is, what were those numbers? All 4 numbers.
Now, when you say flipped...
15 and 51.
Correct.
Oh, gotcha.
But, my point of reference for Celsius is so, non-existent, I couldn't even hazard a guess. I know that -40 and -40 same for both, and that's it.
Yeah, -40 and -40. And then
that's my only frame of reference.
Is 32.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So I feel like this is a really good puzzle to have in your mind, because then you remember that 82 feels like 28 and 61 feels like 16.
Huh. It's a hell of a temperature swing.
Yeah, we live in Minnesota. What can I say?
Yeah, that has happened.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
I remember I was walking to my dad's place from college once, Now I went to MCTC and Dad lived on the other side of Loring Park from it. And it went from 40 above to 40 below that day. And
God damn.
it sticks in my head so well because as I was walking across the park, the lining was falling out of my jacket. And I didn't realize it at first, just wondering why I was getting so cold so quickly. I started rubbing myself to try to keep warm when I noticed my jacket was thinner than when I left. I looked down. Oh, hey, the lining is falling out.
Ugh.
That's awful.
Yeah, that was not fun. But, I made it to Dad's place and I lived, so I was just
Glad
very cold. It'd be weird if I didn't live, because then who
You're
would be this
concerned.
person talking to you right now? Or I could be a zombie. I mean,
I was going to say, I don't know that you aren't undead.
Ghost.
I do know people who have been declared legally dead and then were brought back somehow, because we have, medicine, science, modern medical miracle science words. Words are hard.
Words are especially hard when there's a storm rolling in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The past week has been a roller coaster, and it's really been fucking with my head.
Yeah, I just hope some of it gets down to Chicago. We haven't had a goddamn lick of snow. I'm so mad about it.
None at all this winter?
I mean, we've had, snow fall from the sky, but no accumulation. It all just melts on impact.
Oh, that's weird. That's not
It's,
right.
Yeah, well, apparently it's the first time this has happened in, 40 years or something like that.
That's still not right.
No, it's not.
There it is again, that funny feeling.
I don't know that song.
Oh, it's off of Inside. It's it's that funny feeling when you are looking at the state of the world and late stage capitalism and climate chaos and American views on a lot of things mixed with the weird shit that's happening in pop culture and just that whole internally screaming feeling.
Yes. Yes.
I'll post the link in the notes.
A feeling we are intimately familiar with.
Yes.
This is the first Christmas, and today's date is the 26th of December, for those who are listening. The release date will be January 15th or February 1st. I forgot. I lost track.
Merry belated Christmas!
And happy eventual New Year.
Yeah!
Yeah. But this is the first Christmas that I can think of with no snow. I mean, there's a little bit of snow on the ground, but, it rained 2 days ago and washed a lot of it off the ground. And that's just so becoming the new norm.
Yeah, I hate it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind not having to shovel as much, and I don't mind not being as cold as I normally am at this time of year. But with the whole global warming aspect, and we're all likely going to die, I don't want that part.
Well, I mean, we all are.
Yeah, just, I don't want to die from global
Faster
warming.
and in less pleasant ways.
I want to die in my sleep painlessly or doing something heroic and hopefully still painlessly. But I don't want to die because, we're in the middle of a water war because all of the aquifers are dry and the desalinization plants don't exist.
Hey, man, as long as we live next to a Great Lake, we'll be okay. Just don't let Texas steal our water.
That's only sort of true. I used to do water day with my third graders when I was teaching. I was teaching about a desert, and I used that as an excuse to teach about water conservation. And I'm sure I could look up new data, but as of 2013, at least around the Twin Cities, the White Bear Aquifer was being drained at a faster rate than it was being refilled.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
And that's, in Minnesota next to a Great Lake.
Remember the post, Sarah, do you remember the post I put on my Facebook about how we only have one aquifer that is still pretty much in use because the other one got tainted by the other one?
If you say line 3, I'm going to scream.
Yeah, I think it had to do with line 3.
God damn it!
I had put something about how we need to deal with line 3 because we are having an issue with water, and that can affect our last water source up here.
For those who are not familiar with Minnesota politics, what is Line 3?
A terrible decision is what it is. Line 3 is a reference to the rebuilding project, quote unquote, that Enbridge is doing to basically build a new pipeline there was an existing line 3. It was getting old. It needed repair if it was going to keep functioning, which, I'd prefer that they just shut it down entirely. But instead of building along the line that already existed, they decided, hey, let's build our new line and let's put it straight through indigenous treaty land, and let's dig it under the Mississippi River. And the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources said, okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And the Mississippi is our primary water source.
Not just ours. It's a primary water source for a chunk of the country.
It is.
Like anything that happens up here gets carried all the way down through the United States to Louisiana and into the Gulf.
And the Gulf doesn't need a larger dead zone than they have already.
Right. And I could link you to talk about the fisher folk down there who are having the worst time, because not only is this pollution coming down the river, the refineries are taking their land, but that's an entirely other topic. Line 3, there are still people up there protesting, but at this point, the line's been built. So,
yeah,
not happy.
But we get most of our water here in Minnesota from the Mississippi, and then I think we get some of it from the St. Croix and White Bear aquifers? Something like that.
At the St. Croix River?
Yeah, St. Croix River and the White Bear.
Gotcha.
So I had said that, I had, pointed out that we shouldn't be dicking around with piping oil through the Mississippi because that's where we're getting most of our water, and we are out of water in these other places right now. It was also during Minnesota's historic drought where we were at... I think we hit 100% drought level. It was when Minneapolis actually had to institute water restrictions for the first time in my lifetime. And so I was like, so we got to, not do this. And he comes along going, well, these two aren't related. I'm like, oh, yeah, they're related. We need water to live. That's how they're related. Well, Was
he trying to take the disingenuous position that the pipeline didn't cause the drought and therefore you shouldn't connect them? Is that what he was going for?
That's what he was going for, essentially.
Yeah, the other part of this was that Enbridge was sucking up a whole bunch of water to do their construction.
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah. Yeah. So, because of the drought, Gooseberry Falls up in Duluth, which is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, was not running. There were no falls on the rocks. And I don't know if I made that observation or if somebody else did, and that's when this guy came in and was like, that's not related to Enbridge, what are you trying to say?
And I clearly said twice at that point, we are in a drought, we need to conserve our water, we shouldn't be dicking around with what little water we have.
Like that's being intentionally obtuse at that point.
Yeah. He also made me start hating the word dopamine. Because he said, it's posts like these that make people have impotent rage, and we need to stop being so addicted to anger sharing or something like that because it's a dopamine hit and it makes us feel good or whatever.
I think it's the opposite.
You're an idiot, and I'm really angry with you right now, and here's why I'm angry. And he goes, well, if you're angry, you should think about why you're angry. I'm like, oh, I know why I'm angry, and it's because of you. I mean, 80% of the time, he has great points, and he'll make you think, and very good about, what's going on in the world. But then there's that 20% of the time. It's like, no, you're an idiot.
On his bullshit.
You're back on your bullshit. You're stuck in your old white hippie nonsense. Very much follow the science type person. Unless it has to do with nuclear energy. Then he ignores the science.
Oh, man. I really, you say old white hippie involved in convergence. I'm like, oh, I know this guy. Is it my friend's dad? Might be. Probably isn't, but that's where my brain goes.
It's probably a lot of friends' dads.
Yeah, honestly, probably. You're right.
But yeah, a couple years back, I got into this thing about how we need to start including nuclear power as a clean power source because we're running out of time, with pollution and such, global climate change, and how we have the technologies, if we actually use them, to safely store nuclear waste and even recycle nuclear waste. And he was all, no, we don't. We can't do it. It takes too many resources to do this and blah, blah, blah. And not only was I up in there with like, no, we can do this, had an actual scientist there agreeing with me. I linked him to actual science articles and science communicators having discussions about why we need to do this. And, I at one point had to leave for work. So I was like, all right, well, here's science article, science article, science article. And then here's a list on Wikipedia that has more science stuff about it. He goes, oh yeah, good thing you linked that Wikipedia thing last, because it says, take these certain things with a grain of salt. I go, yeah, but here's some prestigious, scientific institutions, and I will put them ahead of anything that you say, because they know what they're talking about, and you don't. So, meh. And then he went on the path of, I must be anti-solar because I'm pro-nuclear. And I'm like, no, we got to have solar as well. Diversify your energy sources.
Just because I'm pro-pepper doesn't mean I'm anti-onion.
Exactly.
I do have to wonder, though, if, because you mentioned that, the technology's advanced enough, but has the technology not advanced enough with solar and wind power that it has rendered nuclear irrelevant as well? Like, do we actually need, if we can do nuclear safely, but do we need to?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we do. Because we have found we can't generate enough power from solar and wind alone, just for what we need during night and storing enough of it throughout the day. And then dealing with stuff like winter, long-term unexpected events, just your general storage needs, being able to transfer power from one area to another if there's an incident.
Or just summer in Arizona while climate change wreaks havoc.
Yeah, it would be great if we could do everything just off of solar and wind, but we do need to diversify our power sources. Also, with the amount of nuclear waste that we have, well, all the nuclear waste that there is enough to fill one football stadium 3 stories high, and that's it. And B, if we built the power plants that recycled the waste that we already have, we could power the United States as is off of that alone for the next 100 years. And also turn the waste into something safer to deal with.
I'm game. Put my tax money on that.
Yeah, but people are afraid of nuclear energy.
Well, I do have a nuclear power plant not too far north of where I live, and I'm not super keen on it because it is polluting the water around it. So, no, I'm not super keen on it.
Yeah.
Most of the existing nuclear power plants are from a couple of generations of the technology ago.
Yeah.
And it costs a shit ton to retrofit things. So, yeah, I'm not keen on the nuclear technology from a couple generations ago, but I want to be able to upgrade that facility so it's not polluting around you. I want to be able to power your area of Chicago without relying on fossil fuels.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and every time a nuclear plant gets shut down, several coal plants get started up to replace it. It's just super depressing.
It's promising technology, and it has a bad rap because of its earlier iterations. You're right.
Yeah. Plus, even with including Chernobyl and
Fukushima,
thank you. I was going to say 3 Mile Island, and I was going, no, not that one.
Well, also that one.
Well, also that one, but the death toll from those 3 incidents combined is still less than the death toll from coal, period. It's just that we're willing to look away from coal deaths.
Well, sure. But the choice isn't really between nuclear and coal, as you mentioned.
Yep. We're also willing to look away from how we're getting the materials to make solar panels.
And nuclear ore.
Yeah, but I was going to say something, and it walked out of my head right before I said it. We do need to diversify, and we need to hurry up, because there's 100 seconds left until midnight, being not the atomic clock, the doomsday clock.
Generally put together by atomic scientists.
Yeah.
So with 100 seconds left on the clock, how are you distracting yourselves lately? What's good things? What's good things in your lives?
I've been playing a lot of city skylines recently, building cities and trying to keep the pollution down.
Is that like Is that like Sim City, except, updated?
It is, yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, it's by Paradox Interactive, and it is like SimCity, except EA didn't get its hands on it. Screw you, EA, for fucking up SimCity. But it is very much the heir to the SimCity franchise. Build a city, deal with taxes and roads and, power and water, and you deal with things that come along. The first couple of years are hard to keep the pollution down unless you're really crafty. I've not figured out how to do it yet. Because either you gotta use a coal plant or lots and lots and lots of wind plants. And those get pricey. But eventually I get to the point where it's like, yeah, full solar and nuclear. Got that covered. Everything else that's dirty, you're gone. Let's start cleaning up our messes here. I've gotten it down to a population of 100,000 with zero pollution at one point. It's like, yeah, this is nice. If only we could do that in real life.
100,000 is small for a city, though.
Yeah, my computer can't run much higher than that because I don't have a gaming computer. I would love a gaming computer.
Are you able to, set a hard cap on the population in the game, as part of the game settings?
Not that I've discovered.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much once it slows down to that point, I just hit save and quit and then start a new one. But I keep the old ones in the hopes that I might be able to get a gaming computer one day and see how big I can make these cities. Because I want to make them bigger.
I'm just imagining the king from Katamari Damacy. This is not big enough.
Katamari. How about you?
Well, I just checked my final grade for my legal writing class, and I got an A. So that's what's good in my life. Yeah.
Nice.
So I gotta send the final grade to my job and be like, reimburse me, please. This wasn't cheap.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that got that going, and then I also passed the test to get the rank of companion in the Swordplay Guild, or one of the tests. There are 2 tests, and I passed the first one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So thank you. Doing all sorts of testing and learning and proficiency gaining. That's what I'm doing lately.
And how about you, Sarah?
In learning, I have been studying Japanese on Duolingo. Yes. And I had a bunch of double experience point boosts, and I was like, all right, this week is going to be the week. I'm going to sit at the top of the Diamond League and get the achievement for being first place in the Diamond League, which is the highest tier on the leaderboards that you can go. So I started off really strong, and I kept up my points, but this guy kept coming up on my ass, and he started passing me, and so I would pass him, and so he would pass me, and I would pass him, and we were doing this multiple times a day, and I was running out of lessons to do. So I mentioned this to my partner, and at this point, me and this guy were sitting at about 7,500 experience points, which is 3 times the amount of experience points I normally get on a good week. And my partner looks at this, and his JRPG brain turns on, and says, all right, tell me all the mechanics, and I'll tell you how we can grind this out. So we ended up switching off back and forth. He would do Spanish to get extra XP boosts, and then I would do a quick Japanese listening exercise that took me about a minute, and we ground out 8,000 points in 6 hours so that I could win with 15,000 points, and I have now been number 1 in the Diamond League.
Fancy. So I take it then that means your Japanese has been coming along very nicely then?
Sure.
I don't know enough to be able to test you on that, so I'm going to take your word for it.
I've been writing small paragraphs to my pen pal in Japan, and she thinks they look nice.
Yeah, that's the goal.
I imagine writing Japanese is harder than speaking it.
Oh, I'm typing it.
Typing, I also imagine, is harder than speaking it.
Not exactly.
Oh, no?
No, because the way that, at least on my phone, the Japanese keyboard works is each of the... It actually still uses sort of a T9 look to it. So this is going to... If I go into this, it's going to get way too far into how Japanese language works. But each of the syllables can be put in with a single swipe of your finger, and it's very easy to do. And the auto-suggest will suggest the correct kanji for what you want to say, and it makes it really easy.
You know, it's amazing that we can even talk to each other, like, as a species. Imagine the first peoples encountering people who spoke another language, and then having to work out what the hell they were saying.
We all do it as babies.
Yeah, we do as babies, but then we're adults, and adults are adults.
Yeah, that just makes me think about it, because it's like, how long do populations need to be isolated for mutually not comprehensible languages to evolve, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got these, because, you've got these groups of people, and, did language evolve independently amongst these groups? Was there a proto-human language that all humans spoke and it just evolved over time? I don't know enough about linguistic history or etymology to know this. I know that we have Proto-Indo-European, which is a very, very old language that most European languages evolved from, but not all of them. And obviously there are other language groups that have nothing to do with Proto-Indo-European. Trying to wrap my brain around how language evolved in the humans' earliest centuries makes my brain hurt.
I'll throw the Wikipedia link in the chat for you.
I think about how modern Frisian sounds like Old English, but Old English is very different from modern English. There was an Eddie Izzard.
Izzard?
Yeah, wait, hold on.
I believe she goes by she now.
Okay, I couldn't remember. She, some years ago, did a thing where she was doing something with English history. And by English, I mean England. But at one point, she went and purchased a cow by speaking Old English to someone who only speaks Frisian. I will find that and put that in the show notes as well.
Yeah, that sounds really fun.
Yeah, Old English is, from the little bit I've heard, is hard to parse, but possible.
Yeah, not even Old English, even, I can't remember what the technical term for Shakespearean English is, Middle English or something like that?
Shakespeare is
Elizabethan, thank you.
Early modern.
Okay, even that's, if I've listened to, bits performed in the original pronunciation, OP, and it's not completely incomprehensible, but you have to really work very, very hard to be able to understand what they're saying.
Oh, there's also the frickin' vowel shift.
Yeah.
One of the fun tidbits we learned in our theater major was that with Shakespeare specifically, if you translate Shakespeare into other languages, you'll find that these productions are put on as super political charged shows because they're being translated from the Elizabethan English into modern whatever, Hungarian or Chinese or Hindi or whatever. And with English speakers, we just use the original Elizabethan English, and it doesn't hit the same. It's very interesting.
Yep. One of the things that the ye old English, that Y is the letter thon, which is the TH sound. So it's just the old English. Mm-hmm. That gets me. It just kind of wiggles in my brain and goes, Justin, history is weird. History is weird and time is relative. The last Union Civil War widow died last year.
Was she 10 when she married the guy?
I would have to look up how old she was. If you give me a moment, I will do that.
10 and he 80? What?
The last Confederate Civil War widow died in 2008. Give me just a moment. Helen Viola Jackson, born 1919, died 2020.
Okay.
So she was 17 at marriage.
And he was 80.
He was 93.
Aha.
Now, Maud Hopkins, the Confederate, born 1914, died 2008. She was 19 at marriage. Her husband, William M. Cantrell, he was 86.
Why?
Money.
Well, money, yeah, that was part of it. From what I've read, it doesn't have to do with love or anything like that. For Bolin, so Helen Viola Jackson, the Union widow, it says here that way back when they got married, she was helping the elderly Bolin with basic chores, keeping the house up and such. and he couldn't pay. So what they did was they got married so that she would get his pension after he died. So it was a financial thing so that she could be still taken care of and his assets would go to somebody. And from what I've read here, similar marriages have happened in the past. So it was purely financial as a form of payment for services, plus for her kindness. And for Maudie Hopkins, it doesn't say why they're married.
I would assume it's something similar.
Probably, yeah. It just says it was not especially uncommon for young women in Arkansas to marry Confederate pensioners. In 1937, the state passed a law stating that women who married Civil War veterans would not be eligible for a widow's pension. The law was later changed in 1939 to state that widows born after 1870 were not eligible for pensions. Both these women kept their marriages on the DL, though, for various reasons.
I can imagine there'd be a bit of a stigma associated with it.
Yeah.
And also, like, yeah, they're married, but I imagine they still wanted to have relationships with, men their own age.
Yeah. Plus, I don't think they lived long. Boop, boop, boop. So let's see. Jackson married Bolin in 1936. Bolin died in 1939. Hopkins married Cantrell in 1934. Cantrell died in 1937. In fact, looking at the widows who made it into the 21st century, 3 of them only had no more than 4 years with their husband. The 4th one had a decade.
But they're still technically widows.
Technically, yes.
Technically is the best kind of right.
The best kind of widow.
Yep. In all honesty, looking at it as just, this is the only way I can pay you for services rendered. Thank you for taking care of me in my old age. I am not as uncomfortable with it as I am with, like, middle-aged men marrying teenagers. This is...
Teenagers getting married in general.
Yeah. This, to me, is just, here is a way for you to keep getting paid once I'm gone. I'm going to be gone in 3 years. This is nothing more than that. This is purely financial. As I read it, I don't know for sure. I wasn't born yet. My parents weren't born yet. Very few of my grandparents were born yet. Were my grandparents even born yet? Hold on. 36? Yes, they were. My grandparents were born, but they were children. My grandfather was born in 1919. Oh, wow. Yeah, Papa would be 102 if you're still alive. Not 102. What year is it?
It is 2021 for another 5 days.
He'd be 102 if you're still alive. Almost 103.
Damn.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wish my grandparents lived longer, because now that I'm an adult, I have questions for them that never occurred to me when I was a kid.
Definitely.
Like, why Minnesota?
Yeah.
I mean,
why
if they were anything
Roman
like
Catholic?
Catholic, I can't tell you, but if it's anything like the Somali immigrants, this is where the jobs were.
Yeah, it's probably that. I put dollars to donuts at Roman Catholic because the house they bought was across the street from that church.
Were they the ones who converted? It wasn't like a previous generation?
Yeah. If I remember correctly, my grandfather's father was a minister for a different denomination of Christianity. I would have to look it up because I don't remember, but that is what I'm thinking is correct. I will make a note of it in the show notes after I check. But yeah, his dad and I believe his grandfather, my grandfather's grandfather, I believe both of them were ministers back in Kentucky. That sounds right. It's hard to keep track, especially as an African American, because most of our history is just not written down anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So what there is kind of sparse. But fortunately, there is a bit written down and put places. So we've compiled as much of it as we could. One of my ancestors
really
is in a book, though. Arnold Graxton. If you look up the book Bullwhip Days, you will find him. There's also a signpost commemorating him in Ohio.
Cool. What did he do?
He helped people on the Underground Railroad on the Ohio River, back when it was a river before it got dammed up a bit. He would bring people across the river into Ohio from Kentucky.
Sick, that's cool.
Yeah. Eventually things got too hot and he moved into Ohio and stayed there. His daughter, I believe, was one of the first black women to go to University of Florida.
Family's cool.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if I was a little more focused, if I'd be able to do a little bit more. Get that doctorate that I wanted. Or if I just got screwed over because finances.
I mean, you could be a little from column A and a little from column B.
Yeah. Plus the economy crashed when I got my bachelor's and was unable to find steady work for many years. Plus, income inequality is at an all-time high. I looked up the other day, so our editor Rachel, her podcast With the Finance, did an episode recently, and I was on it, and I had mentioned that the average wealth difference between black families and white families is 150,000 to 1. For every $28,000 a black family has, a white family has about $173,000.
And that's what happens when the government bombs your bank.
Yep. And the way things are going right now, by the 2050s, average black wealth is looking like it'll be at $0. And average white wealth is looking to be at about $195,000. So moving in two different directions there.
So I wonder how that would change if because you also have the obscenely fucking wealthy, like the Bezoses and the Musks and all them. Obviously they're going to skew the average for white folks. Like if we remove that upper percentile, I wonder how that would change it.
Yeah, I wonder as well. I'm going to have to double check that number to see if it was the median or the mean.
Either way, those would both be skewed. But
yeah, I mean,
definitely.
obviously that wouldn't make the gap disappear, but and the fact that all the richest men in the world are all white folks, that's still indicative of the overarching issue, but it would be interesting to compare.
Oh yeah, definitely. It does also reflect one of the reasons, why having my own apartment is pretty much a fantasy. Oh, but I miss my old apartment.
We'll get you back to the city.
One day.
Or come down to Chicago.
Yeah.
Slightly warmer than Minnesota.
That is a possibility. I am keeping that in mind. Oh yeah. I only know 2 people in Chicago right now, though. Currently.
Get down here and I'll plug you into all the nerd circles that I hang out in.
Excellent. All right. Shall we do you have any last thoughts before we sign out?
Be gay, do crime, Happy New Year.
I was going to say read Snow Crash. It's a good book. I like it. And it involves the evolution of languages.
Nice. For once, I don't actually have anything. Be kind to each other because this is all we've got. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.